Welcome to another part of the JBL L88 restoration project. And in front of me is a LE25-1 tweeter. It's kind of pulled out of a L100, but I'm going to use it in the L88. As you can see, it's in pretty bad shape. But I'm going to attempt, it works, so that's a good start, but I'm going to go ahead and attempt to bring this into acceptable shape again. Now I'll go ahead and I'll just have a before and after picture on this, but just looking at it, I'm going to try to pull the center dust cap out with a shop vac, wet the dust cap, wet the paper, and try to pull it out. I doubt that that's going to work. I might not even do that because that is so, it looks like it's also broken inside there. I might just have to cut it out, wet it, and reshape it. The cone itself is broken too, so I think what I'm trying to do there is maybe take a needle and put it through the side. Try to push that cone back up. I'll have to wet the other part of the cone because you see the wrinkles there, wrinkles over here too. You see it still moves, it's still functional. But this is probably going to be a tough one. I'm going to try to make it look as good as I can. I'll probably use some super glue to put this rip in the edge. Try to put that, bond that, all that stuff back together again, and then give it a real light paint job to make it look original again. So anyway, I'll go ahead and I'll grab some tools and I'll figure out what I'm going to do here. This is a different one that I fixed up a couple of days ago. Definitely not perfect, but usable. Looks a lot better now than it did before. Kind of looked a lot like this one, and like I said, it functions. So when you put that on the speaker, it actually looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do what I did. I think I'm actually thinking about, more than I think about it, I'm just going to cut that dust cap off of there and put some water on it, see if I can reshape it, make it look like this one. This one's not perfect, like I said, but it is a lot better than this one. First thing I'm going to try to do is cut as close to that bottom edge as possible. I'm going to go ahead and slowly cut around there till I have it cut all the way around, and we'll see what that looks like. After dissecting, this is the dust cap. Looks pretty bad. It's kind of clean inside there. The edges are a little rough. I cut it out, but I'm going to go ahead and put some water on this thing and see how good I can shape it. After wetting it and kind of working with it a little bit, it looks better, but I got one big problem. There's a split on one side of it, and I kind of saw that before I removed it, but otherwise it doesn't look terribly bad. I'll try to figure out how to put that split together, but it's kind of back in shape now. We'll see what down the road here, we'll see what that looks like after we glue that back on. Now I'll have to work on this cone and see what I can do to kind of push that back into place, get that back into shape. So I ended up cutting all the way around the surround ring at the bottom, so you really couldn't see where I cut through. And I ended up propping up the cone with my X-Acto knife. Went in there and propped it up from underneath, and glued that area that was separated. It looks looks pretty bad right now, but you know, if you want an omelet, you have to break some eggs. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a little. I went ahead also and I put super glue, dripped super glue all over the top of the dust cap, because it was just so weak. The paper was just, I mean, you breathe on it, it would push in. So I went ahead and I just a real light coat of that, and it stiffened it up tremendously. As you can see, this whole thing is moving as it should. So functionally and structurally, it's good. Now I need to cosmetically make it look better. So I'm going to go ahead and mix up a little bit of a little paint and give this a light coating to get the cosmetics to look a little bit better. Okay, so here's the final product. I did some paint work on it and try to make it look as good as I could. I mean, it's not the best, but from 2 feet away, it looks pretty good. You get closer, it doesn't look great, but whole heck of a lot better than it was to start with. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on the speaker, and you can see what it looks like. So ran into a little problem. I was putting together the speakers and the tweeters and ready to test everything out, and one tweeter wasn't working. And this is one of them that I had worked on, and I guess I had plunged too deeply into it and cut one of the leads to the voice coil. So anyway, I went ahead and I mean, really, I could have used a different tweeter. I have more of these, but it's one of those things that I'm going to try and repair this and see if I can get this tweeter going again. But so I went ahead and I cut, and you can see I cut this whole thing apart, and I got down to the leads, and I saw where they were cut, and they were cut right by the edge of this voice coil, right by the upper edge. So I ended up having to cut those wires out, and because they're in there with the epoxy. So I cut them out, clean them off, and now I'm going to go ahead and take some wire, just some speaker wire, some stranded stuff here. I'll show you. Take this wire, and I'm going to attempt to solder that onto those 2 leads so I can re-thread this, put this thing back together and re-thread this back to these points where they need to get soldered. So anyway, I will go ahead and attempt to do that, tin these wires and put them back together. They're really small, but you know what? It's just one of those things that I think I can do it, and I'm going to give it a shot. So I'll show you how that works out. It's kind of like a rescue on the LE25 tweeter. I hate to let these go, so I'm going to give it a shot. So the first thing you need to do in order to solder this is tin the leads on everything. So I just take the leads and I just stick them in rosin. Just get that rosin, stick it in there as good as I can, get it all over the leads. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my soldering iron to put just a bit of solder on both of these wires. So now I have my soldering iron and I have the rosin on the on the tips of those wires, and I have solder on the tip of the soldering iron itself, and I'm just going to touch that on there and get that solder on the wire and get that tinned up. Okay, that should be good. I'm going to do the same thing with the wire leads that I'm going to solder to this, and hopefully when I put them together, they'll stay and they'll hold together. With the wires that I'm going to attempt to solder this to, dip that in the rosin. You see that? And now I'm gonna go ahead and put a little solder on my iron. A little fresh solder on there. And solder that on. Tin the end of the wire, which should allow me to put the two of them together, and that solder should flow right in between them. So after several attempts, I was able to get that soldered, and the key is to have those wires tinned really well and get as much solder as you can on them, and just touch them and then put more solder on them when you get them next to each other, and then just touch them real quick and just hold it. And you know, after, like I said, after several attempts, I was able to get those two soldered. So after many tries, I was able to get both leads soldered together. So now I'm gonna go ahead and super glue these back into place, and then go ahead and put the whole thing back together. So let's see how that turns out. Have to be very patient and take some time, but it should work. I will be back. I've gone ahead and glued the spider back onto the voice coil, and put the wires where they need to go. And one thing, definitely when doing this, make sure you test your continuity, make sure you got positive where positive should be and negative where negative should be. Then now what I'll do is I'll take this shim, once again another shim, doesn't matter if it's big speaker or small speaker, take this shim, put it in here inside the voice coil, and insert it into the gap in the magnet to maintain that gap and make sure we don't have any rubbing of the voice coil. I'll go ahead and I'll glue the glue the spider onto there. I'll leave the shim in place, and then I'll bring the cone in, bring that on top, and glue the cone in place. We get everything in except for the dust cap. I'll go ahead and test it out, make sure that that's good after it's glued, and then I'll go ahead and I'll glue the dust cap on. Per my usual, I got involved in my project and forgot to video steps that I should have. But anyway, I got the tweeter back together. It's definitely not a good looking effort. I'm going to try to make that look a little bit better, but it's been through a lot to get to this point. It works fine, but it's not very good looking, not very appealing right now. So I'm going to go ahead and try and put a little epoxy to straighten out some of those rough edges of that glue, and try it out, just make sure it's working okay, and it was working last night. So anyway, this is where I am with it. It's now a functioning tweeter again. Needs a little bit more work, but I should be done soon. So this is the finished product with the tweeter. I mean, it's, from a purist perspective, it's definitely not like the original, but I think to the 98%, probably 99%, it'll look good. So anyway, that's the end of the tweeter saga. So all I have to do is put these together, get some Velcro. I don't know why, but when I bought these cabinets, they were missing the Velcro on the bottom. In the middle, they had put Velcro up top here, and in the bottom. I don't know if there was a difference that JBL did, but I went ahead and I pried those off. They just stapled them in. It looked like it was JBL. But anyway, so I'm gonna have to get some more Velcro to put on this so I can fasten the grills on there, and then just look for any touch-ups and play them, and that'll be it for this project.